Hi, in this episode, I'm going to do a walk back, say more or less as a tourist, to the many interesting sites and places within the large city of Moscow. And see, one of the interesting things about Moscow is the city is roughly divided into two big parts by the Moscow River. And somewhere along, the in my memory, there is a piece of rudimentary piece of information, which is that the one of the Tsars created a new river, a brand, a loop, you know, in the Moscow River actually, so that as per the directions of the design of the engineers or suggestion of the engineers, that will what what do you call it? That will avoid the new channel, which is like a loop. Begins branches out from the Moscow River, goes further downstream and several kilometers, and then rejoins the Moscow River, so that the flood level in the Moscow River within the city will be reduced. In other words, there will be a lot of water stored within the newly created channel. So that exists there. It is also maintained just like any of the other segments of the river within the city limits. In other words, there are either shore there will be, or there are highways or city fast lane city roads, etc. And then parks and buildings, very tall buildings, business buildings, office complexes lining up, etc., etc. So Moscow River actually, if you looked at in a Google map or Google Earth, what you will see is Moscow River is highly meandering in this region, in the city. In other words, it is not at all a straight channel, it is a meandering channel. So one side of the city, let us say roughly the northern side or the left bank of the Moscow River, I would say, left bank, is the place where the Red Square and Kremlin are there. So there are, another thing is the wonderful design of the roads and layout. The roads as well as the metro system radiate out of what is called the Kremlin area, the Red Square area, in all directions. Toward the left bank territory of the Moscow River, as well as the left bank territory of the Moscow River. In fact, the Moscow State University, Gosdurnaya University, as it was called those days, Moscow's, whatever, I forgot. But Gosdurnaya stands for the state anyway. University means university. It stands in what is called the Lenin Hills. And Lenin Hills actually, when you look, is really an elevated area with a higher elevation, because when you look at the Moscow River and the floor of the Moscow River compared to this Leninsky Gori, which is on the south side of the south side, or roughly on the south side, or on the right bank of the river, is a taller hill, no doubt. And it is called Leninsky Gori. Those days when I was there, during the Soviet system, prior to Lenin's arrival in 1917, I did not know what the name given to that hills was, even though the university dates back the revolution. And this university is a huge complex. I used to go on holidays for a walk around the campus, through the campus roads, and all the way to the edge of the river shore. In the sense, not edge of the river shore, edge of the river valley, let us say. That will be a better way to put it. And from there, if I looked roughly northerly, I will see what is called a Lenin Stadium. That stadium is a huge one, like unlike any of the stadiums that we have in India, and even these days, And this actually was the main stadium of the 1980 Olympics that was held in Moscow. Okay. From that point, lookout point, if I looked further northerly beyond toward the horizon, I will see the very tall buildings in the city in the Red Square area, and on any clear day. Well, if I turned 180 degrees, I did an about turn and looked back, then what I will see is the very tall spire or minar or something like that of what is called, or obelisk, whatever you want to call, or the Moscow State University. And this university, the tallest, whatever that point, or it is like an obelisk, or on top of it. It's very tall in the sense several stories high, several meters high. There is a large red 5-pointed ruby star made of ruby, red ruby. This is what I was told. Well, red ruby is a precious stone. It's a mineral actually, and of course, Russia has a lot of natural mineral wealth. And this stone is red ruby stone is excavated from rocks and brought over and is sliced into sheets, whatever, to make a 5-pointed star, which is actually the star of the symbol of the Soviet Republic or the Soviet Union. This not only Soviet Union, of the Communist Party, let us say. China has several stars in their flag. Indian Communist Party has again a star on the no, not Communist Party of India, Marxist Communist Party of India has a star with, in addition to a sickle and a hammer and so on and so forth. Anyway, it is not, there are at least 6 or 7 buildings in the Moscow metropolitan area which will sport a red star. Naturally, in that night it will be illuminated by an electric bulb or electric bulbs, let us say. So another interesting thing is there is a beautiful garden that is at least a kilometer long avenue road on either side, and the lawns and flower beds, etc. on the what is called roughly on the northern side of the main building of the university, Moscow State University. And one other thing I still remember about the Moscow State University is behind the main building there are streets and streets separating, running in between or separating academic blocks, and finally toward farthest from the main building or complex looking toward northerly, or just opposite, on the opposite side looking along the southern edge, there are student hostels, men's and women's, etc., etc. How do you recognize a student hostel? Is those days in the spring season, you will see the garments, laid out in the strings for drying. That's all. Sun drying, not the what is called the electrical drying, but instead sun drying. That facility probably was not provided in the hostel. So one of the street is named after Mendeleev. It's called Ulitsa Mendeleva. Any street names actually a feminine gender. Well, I'm sorry about the noise because someone in the upper floor is making a noise. Let us forget about it. It's not a big distraction anyway. When you live in an apartment complex, you'll have to put up with such things, at least during the daytime. Sorry about that. Back to the main story. And this Ulitsa Mendeleva is actually named in honor of Mendeleev. We all know students of chemistry in particular are those people who have learned about chemistry and periodic table, but in the school, not in the school days, in the college days. School days, no. Now probably yes, in the school also periodic table is referred to. This gentleman, this professor, this scholar, this chemical scholar, chemistry scholar, created the first periodic table, or the periodic table of chemical elements that all over the world everyone is using. So that is about what is called Ulitsa Mandeleva. So, well, of course, then I never went inside of the academic blocks, even though there is a geology department. And interestingly, some of my, at least one roommate, one of the office mates in the PFU, People's Friendship University, one paleontologist, occasionally used to go to, occasionally in the sense almost every week, couple of days, to the what is called the MGU, Moscow State University, goes to Naya University. And when he comes back and rejoins the next day for lunch, what he will say is, there was an excellent food, a food variety served in the Salovaya in the MGU or the Moscow State University. So, well, of course, I did not know anybody because, as far as Soviet system is concerned, if I am attached to PFU, unless I am accompanied by a Soviet citizens or my immediate host, a academic in the PFU, I will not be welcome to the what is called the Moscow State University. So I did not think that there was anything special to go and see. Once you have seen one university in the Soviet Union, I would say you have seen all the universities in the Soviet Union. One thing I can very firmly tell you, even today, that the cutting-edge research does not take place in the university system, unlike it happens in the United States. There is what is called the academies, and the academies are the places where you see, where we expect output, research output that is of direct use, either in defense or in the upward movement of the civil society by way of services and products. And I was not invited. I was not only not invited, I was not supposed to make a visit to the Soviet Academy, in other words, the Academy of Sciences. That also was very adjacent to what is called the Leninsky, Moscow State University in the Leninsky Gori. One of the things that I got impressed was the residential flats of the academic scientists work in the academy. It is beautiful in the sense, ornate buildings, very old style architecture, Roman and whatever, Italian, let us say. And those people, the chiefs are group heads in the academies are taken in a long black car back to the office and from the office back to home and from the home to office by a chauffeur. In other words, those people are sitting at the pinnacle of programs and in charge of programs in the academies. Okay, so another interesting thing I always comes back to mind is there is a station, metro station called Leninsky Gori. Leninsky Gori is actually immediately after the metro crosses the Moscow River. And that station, and in the Moscow River, of course, that you will see what is called something like a glass transparent tunnel covered railroad, a pair. In other words, for the up train and up train metro and down train or metro, there are two different tubes. And you can, from the road bridge, you can see the trains zipping through this tube-like structure, which is on the bridge, on a pair of bridges over the Moscow River. And once you pass the Leninsky Gori station toward what is called coming away from the Red Square, next station is actually University. And on this building, on the surface, indicate, through which you enter that building by ticket or go and take your what is called escalator down and up or whatever, whichever way. And on the wall of that building, there is a mention of name Jawaharlal Nehru. Still I believe that the station is named after Jawaharlal Nehru and University Station, Jawaharlal Nehru University Station, etc., something like that. That actually is the closest place from the Leninsky Prospect. Leninsky Prospect is probably a very important road connecting the northern side of the city of Moscow, on the northern side of the river, with the south. And the Leninsky Prospect is, I would say, that at least 6 lanes on each side. That is the importance. 6 lanes going toward Moscow, Red Square area, and another 6 lanes coming back. And this also leads to one of the 4 or 5 airports in Moscow, in and around Moscow, around Moscow, in the periphery of the city, actually. This prospect called Leninsky Prospect is leading to or going towards the airport where heads of states and nations only are landing. For other civil society, the other 4 or 5 airports are used. This particular airport, which one may reach through the Leninsky Prospect from the Red Square area, is exclusively for what is called the heads of nations and the states visiting Moscow. And interestingly, you can immediately quickly spot a very high official of the Soviet government, the Union of Soviet States, taking their road. In other words, you will see a formation of motorcycles, uniformed policemen piloting this, and behind that block of several policemen in motorcycles, there will be at least half a dozen black cars, limousines. All the limousines, I think it's named after Olga, some such thing in the country. And in any one of these will be a very important person of the government traveling. And either, also another interesting thing is every day, or on a very working day, roughly on a very working day, a batch of students from the schools in the Moscow city will be taken in a bus over to the so-called, the VVIP airport to line up there on either side of the street when you come out of the airport with a Soviet flag as well as a flag of the country whose head of state is visiting on that particular day. This is practically, one of the 2 countries in the world where you have a lot of foreign dignitaries, heads of states and nations visiting. One is in obviously Moscow, and the other is Washington D.C., Dallas International Airport. And of course, those days, you come by a helicopter from Dallas International Airport over to the White House area or whatever. So that is about the Leninsky Gori and Leninsky Prospect. This area is also, the intersection of the road from my hotel with the Leninsky Prospect. And on the what do you call the west side of westerly of that intersection is what is called one of the 2 or 3 circus arenas. Soviet circus is globally well known, and it is a 365 days circus arena. In other words, all the 365 days of the year, there will be one show, and like in anything else, and all these circus artists and the second line and third line supporters in this circus arena are what is government in payrolls, or in the government payrolls, like any other profession. In other words, there is no private citizen. Everybody who is in a working group, age group, is on a payroll of the government. And that way, what you will notice is there a lot of women also working in the different occasions in that system. As much as there is as much as women as there are men working. If you look at the policemen, there will be men policemen as well as women police persons. So that system is actually good. Everybody gets a paycheck. That is the advantage. Well, I will go back to another episode about May Day, let us say, in which I participated in Moscow. Thank you.